Hudome, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Sure. Good to see you, Chris.
I want to get to the larger issues that we sort of introed in that segment there. But first, I just want to get your reaction to that Gingrich soundbite in the speech today. What did you make of that? Him saying we should pass a law against the non-existent threat of the imposition of Sharia.
Well, I'm not sure as far as the speech goes because I was not there. And as we've all learned these past few weeks, we don't want to take comments out of context. That being said, you know, Speaker Gingrich, who was a Speaker of the House in 1994 and a member of Congress, very well knows that we have the protection of the First Amendment here in the United States. It's the First Amendment for a reason, and what it does is protect anybody from the exercise of free religion, but it also protects the Congress from passing any law that prohibits that exercise of free religion or establishes any religion. So we already have the protections of the First Amendment here in the United States, and I'm not sure what Newt Gingrich was speaking about there. But certainly, as you mentioned, Chris, it's the silly season, and I can only surmise that Newt Gingrich is running for president in 2012.
Well, but that's an interesting sort of indication, right? I mean, if it is a silly season, if this is being done to gin up political interest, what does that say about what Republicans are willing to say or the people they're willing to use as sort of straw man enemies in campaign season?
Well, Chris, you had an interesting introduction there, but I would urge you to do a little bit more digging on those politicians who are speaking out against Muslim or anti-Islamic rhetoric. You forgot in your Florida piece to mention Jeff Green, the Democratic Senate candidate who's running for the United States Senate in Florida, and who himself called the Quran, you know, having very, you know, crazy language in the Quran, and said some things about Islam that were not very enlightening. So, Chris, this rhetoric is on both the Democrat and Republican side. This is not just a Republican issue.
That is,
what I can tell you is, if you give me 24 hours, I will dig up every negative statement of every Democratic senator and congressman against Islam and Muslims in America. And it won't be that hard.
I would invite you to do that, and I guarantee you we will post it on the blog, because I really don't think you'll be able to come up with it. I mean, the fact of the matter is, right now, if you look at this Ground Zero, and let's talk about the Ground Zero Islamic Center. I mean,
sure, absolutely.
That is one after another Republican candidates. In fact, the Republican gubernatorial candidates are trying to kind of out-Islamic center each other between Rick Lazio and his opponent, whose name's escaping me at the moment. But what do you make of that? Why is that a big issue for these Republican candidates?
Okay, well, let's first of all talk about the Ground Zero Mosque and the actual vote that counts, and those members of the New York Council who had to vote on this. The Ground Zero Mosque, and by the way, that's sort of a misnomer. It's not a mosque. It's actually a community center that includes a mosque, restaurants, a cultural center, an auditorium. So what it is a community center which exists all over the United States in many states. But that vote that took place in the New York City Council was actually overwhelmingly voted in favor of it, and indeed, many of those members that voted on the City Council, take a look at those votes, were indeed Republicans and Democrats and independents and everything there. Now, let's go to what you're talking about here, which is people running for office and using this as a wedge issue. There's no question, Chris, that after 9/11, Islam took a great deal of beating.